Here we go. Going live in five, four, three, two, and one. And boom. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Of Like Minds video podcast. Super special guest today, leader of the performing arts and choreographer, Miss Marie Arts. Miss Marie, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here with you and spend time with you again. I've missed you in my life, so this is really special opportunity for me.
Oh, absolutely. It's been too long. It's been too long. Miss Marie, first of all, just it's gonna be a lot, but just starting to talk about how dance came into your life and just talking about the beginning of that journey.
Oh, I know. Gosh, it's been quite the journey. I started dancing young, like many of us. And, from the first time I took a ballet class, I knew that it would be my life journey. I felt like a lifer in the performing arts. And I've been very fortunate that I've had a very long career in the performing arts, particular ballet, but it's been my whole life from being a performer to a choreographer to being a leader in the performing arts. It's something that I've always been passionate about, and I continue to hold that passion now. Um, and I feel very fortunate for my incredible journey, very diverse.
Oh my, no, absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's a lot we're going to be able to get into. And just, I think even with talking about just starting with ballet and obviously starting really young and being a woman and what that art did for you in terms of the rest of your career. So just like starting and having that foundation of ballet and like how important that was for you.
The ballet it gave me the discipline um, for my entire career. Um, just having that rigorous structure in my life um, to keep following through with. Yeah, I was just super passionate about it. I actually became injured though when I started dancing professionally.
Mhm.
And I was very fortunate that the artistic director of the company at the time just kept guiding me to the next opportunity in dance. So I think that's been one of my life missions for other performing artists, for them to know that you can always keep diversifying. The performing arts is something that you want to keep expanding and navigating your way through. So yes, maybe you're a dancer, but like what you're doing, Kevin, you're diversifying. You're reaching out to be a mentor and a leader in the performing arts. And that's one of the missions that I've really found to be true, because if my artistic director at the time when I got injured didn't lead me to the next thing, being a choreographer, it probably would have been a dead end in my life.
No, absolutely. And if you can just kind of focus in a little more, you kind of said, with the opportunities being presented to you, you are also dealing with injury and obviously with dance being so physical and literally your body is what, your money maker is what you rely on. What was it like dealing with injuries and navigating through that process?
Well, I was really young when that happened. So you have to take care of your body, and I'm older now, so there was a lot of information at the time on nutrition and sports medicine that wasn't available to me, so I did feel a little lost. And back then, it was kind of seen as the end of your career if you got injured.
Mhm.
Nowadays sports medicine has really come far. Nutrition, different ways of taking care of your body, pacing. Dancers need to pace themselves, they need to also rest. Back in my day, it was more of that hard push. Um, so like rest and nutrition wasn't as big as a conversation back then. So that's been one of my, as a leader and teacher in the performing arts, really making sure that the dancers always have that balance in their life as well. So I had to navigate that for myself. And I felt like, again, saying I felt fortunate when I was dancing that the artistic director of the company did guide me to teach and to choreograph, and he saw a talent in me in being a choreographer. So I feel really lucky in
Mhm.
that way. And that's also a sign of a very good leader, that they can take a dancer from here and their whole journey. And so when I teach my dancers, I really like them to see not only that they can dance, but do they want to be a teacher,
Mhm.
production manager, choreographer. So there's the vast array of opportunities for them to be a creator. I think it's most important that they see themselves as an artist and creator rather than just a dancer, because a dancer, you do have, that's your body.
Mhm,
Like, what
mhm.
if you're injured? That can lead to depression for a dancer if they're injured. So if they see themselves as an artist and a creator, it keeps them in motion, even if their body needs to rest and recoup. Um, or it just keeps a variety of balls up in the air, so to speak, so they can keep creating.
Absolutely. Well, Miss Marie, what did that do for you with, your teacher recognizing you and seeing something in you, and seeing that you had this potential to teach and to educate and to influence the next generation? What did First of all, when in your career did that happen? And what did that do for you mentally in terms of confidence, in terms of I can do this, I can make this, I can make a life out of this?
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. um, well, I was young, so I had my whole life dancing, dancing, dancing. You understand this, right? I had great.
Yeah.
You've met some of my teachers, like Diane Gross.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Really want to give credit to. She was fantastic. Um, and so when I got an injury, I was recovering, so I was able to dance again, but never at the same level again. So to be able to have that confidence to continue as a creator, I had a few people to thank. My mother was a big part of keeping that creative flow in my life. So I had that kind of open mindset to always be a creator. Um, and so that did help me not to just limit myself in one way of thinking of my art form. And I really enjoyed choreography. I loved having dancers in front of me and seeing what I could create next. So that, and that the confidence of continuing with that just kept building. That's the thing that, dancers and artists, they just need to keep going, willing to fail, willing to fail, willing to risk themselves time and again, because you're building a muscle, just
Mm.
like a muscle memory you would in ballet, first position, tendu, the same thing in choreography or anything else. You have to just keep going, keep making little steps and building muscles in your creative leadership.
Mm. No, absolutely. And I think you kind of touched up on it a little bit earlier, but if you can just talk about the differences in the generation in which you grew up in terms of class etiquette, in terms of mentality and approaching mistakes are okay, to kind of seeing the generation now and the kids now, and how it's kind of expecting things to come really quickly, and especially in an art form like ballet, where it's
Mhm.
so rigorous, it's so strenuous, you're putting your body in these positions that it's not supposed to be, and you're training it to do these incredible things. And so just talking about what it's like, again, coming from a generation where you kind of understanding that patience, and then to kind of, the generation you started really teaching, it's like that started shifting, and their mentality was like, I need to be perfect, I need to, like, I expect things to come right away. Like, what was that like, adjusting to that?
Again, another really good question. Because back in my day, so I'm 50 now, and
Young
we
young 50, young
didn't.
50.
Thank you, ballet. I have ballet and good genes. Okay. um, so again, we didn't have social media or anything. We didn't see the whole scope of dance. So when you went to a dance performance, I mean, that's when you saw it. You were like, wow, to buy tickets, to drive to that location and to watch dancers on stage. Now you can see amazing dancers on Instagram. So for me growing up, it was like this ideal to achieve, and you didn't have it in your face day by day by day. Um, and I had wonderful teachers who just instilled in me, just the work ethic of daily training. Um, I think you're right. Now with students, they get frustrated too easily. They see it in front of them and they think they should be that, all of a sudden, without the day to day. Whoops, my doggy's here. Sorry about that. um, Kind of the day to day rigor, of taking class, of stretching, of being patient with yourself, of knowing that you're going to go up and then you're going to plateau. and then you're going to go up, and then you're going to plateau. Um, I think some of that training's lost,
Mm.
and I would like to see it come back. That dancers have the patience to, have a bad day with their turns. Work through it, be patient with themselves. Um, I hope that I'm answering your question
No,
well enough.
absolutely. I mean,
My dog.
even just no worries. Even knowing that there's always the next wave and the next generation,
Yes.
what would you maybe suggest to new
Mm,
teachers, and we'll specifically just kind of focus on the more traditional styles in terms of with ballet and modern. What would you say to those teachers who are kind of dealing head on currently now with those those difficulties in terms of like this art form takes time, it takes repetition, and the student groups they're usually dealing with
yes.
expect things to come so quickly? What would you maybe suggest to them in terms of solutions or things they can do?
For new teachers,
Yeah,
correct?
for new teachers, yeah.
Yeah, I think well, a couple of things. I feel like the level of competition for young teachers is immense now. They have a rather challenging new situation where, um, and I'm going to say this gently, but still say it, where everyone thinks they can be a dance teacher,
Mm,
and um, and without the thought of maybe, they're thinking of the money, or I know dance and I'm just going to teach. And I see a lot of competition with the teachers because I've been a leader in the performing arts. I really have seen an overarching view of that. So I would say to the young teachers that are teaching, still keep the students in mind. Not always the money or how many private lessons you can get or the trophy your student might get you, or the accolades, like every student matters. And think about that one student, or if you have a class of 10, or if your Zoom class has 20 in it, think of every single student, know their names, take take the time to teach them about life and how to be a dancer instead of just the technique, or what are you going to get as a young teacher out of this. um, is this your star student? Like, to take the time to teach students how to live their life. I feel like students nowadays have such challenges, and now with the pandemic, this online learning that they're dealing with, they're suffering, they're struggling, they're very confused. And today's dance teachers in particular, where they feel really connected with their students, have an opportunity to ground the students and to build life skills. And Kevin, I have to acknowledge you're particularly good at that with students, and that's why I've always liked working with you. You've always taken the time to really care for the students and give them life skills, and they feel taken care of. So
mm.
I've always appreciated that with you.
And thank you. That means the world. I think anytime you get that kind of acknowledgement from, you know, a peer or someone you look up to, I think it means the world. So thank you for that. And I think you even hit it on the head with just talking about feeling taken care of. And we've all seen, and we've all probably taken class or seen studios where it's really just about the technique and it stops
Mhm.
there. And I don't think there's anything necessarily bad about that, but I think there is
Right.
an imbalance. And so maybe just talking about where that came from, not only you being a dance teacher, but
Mhm.
really being an educator and a mentor, and thinking more teaching holistically as opposed to I'm going to teach you how to do bar, grande allegro, petit allegro, this and sort of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Where did that come from? That just being able to relate and to empathize with your students and your kids.
Wonderful question. I might have to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, no worries.
I think part of it again, it was my mother. My mother was an educator. She was a teacher, so I had a lot of that at home. Um, Again, I had wonderful teachers growing up, and that also taught me the life skills. I think you had similar from our conversations, and that made a big difference in my life to have not only school training, but your dance teacher as your mentor in your life is a huge positive thing. And when I got injured of dance, I felt at that point in time in my life that my world had ended. and I thought hard about students who have injuries or really struggle and like what I could provide for them. Um, and I've always been a little bit more holistic
Mhm.
in my thinking. Again, I have my mother to thank. She was always an activist in social justice. So I always had this kind of broader vision of the world. Um, and I wanted to bring that to dance. And so it was a very conscious choice for me to bring these holistic aspects to my teaching and to my organizations that I ran.
Absolutely. And just talking about, your mother kind of instilling those views and those morals. If you can just talk about what it was like, that support system, especially for someone who's pursuing the arts. I think it's a little more unconventional than what you would normally think, as
Yes.
opposed to working towards getting a 9 to 5. And if you can just talk about what that support was like at home from your family and friends
Mhm.
pursuing this career that's, not typical. What was that like?
Well, again, I feel like I was really lucky. I feel like I was very lucky, privileged in that way. For number one, that my parents could afford dance classes for me.
Mhm,
That's a privilege,
mhm,
and that I had the support. I was little and flexible, so I had the talent. So I didn't have as many challenges. I was kind of made for ballet.
mhm,
So I had kind of a fast pace, agenda with
mhm,
my talent. And then I loved it. So I feel lucky in that regard. Now, I grew up in a small town in the
mhm,
South, in Louisiana.
mhm,
So I didn't have the big city support of like a big ballet company or anything. I was fortunate I had good teachers in the South in my small
mhm.
town, but I really had to work hard to navigate, to bigger cities, to bigger ambitions, to bigger visions for myself. And, I was fortunate that I had the community, teacher, and parent support that I had.
Absolutely. I mean, it's incredible to see that continuation, and even working so closely with you for several years, and to see that and to see how it's still brought us together today. So
Yeah,
it's really awesome to see that, like, not only in the dance classroom, but that even just shedding outside of the classroom and just in life. And like, I really
yeah.
appreciate that about you.
Mhm,
Um, Talking a little bit about that too now, our experiences are very different in dance, and I think one that's very interesting is a woman's perspective, and obviously
mhm,
being more female dominated. What is that like? Number one, what is it like jumping into a classroom and seeing a lot of people, maybe or maybe not looking similar to you, but dominant, mostly women, like you,
right,
it's a lot of attention goes to the man directly if it's
right.
the dance class, obviously. So what's it just like? Is it competitive? Like, in the era that you grew up in, was it competitive? What did that do for you? Were you comparing yourself? Were you
Oh,
hypercritical? What
totally.
was that like?
Yeah. Yes, very competitive. You go to a ballet audition and there's like 120 women and like three men. And that was it's always on your mind. Am I too short? For me, it was my height. How to make myself look taller, technique wise. What's my specialty? What's going to make me stand out? Was always in the forefront of my mind. Um, yeah, it's very competitive in that way. And in some ways now, I think it's even more competitive. I think because of social media, there's always it's always in your face now. Before you go to an audition or company class or master class, and it wasn't all over social media like it is now. So it was a very specialized opportunity, kind of almost like a once in a lifetime opportunity to take these master classes or go to that special audition. And now I think it's even harder for young women and men. It's in your face all the time. You're comparing yourself with the Instagram stars, people on social media. They might have that one perfect pirouette and it's just a blip of that, or really flexible dancer. So in some ways I think it's more competitive, and I would say to the young dancer just to keep bringing yourself back to who you are and get clear for yourself what is your specialty in the arts. Is
Mm,
it your artistry, your presence. You can just be an artist with your presence. Do you want to focus on just your art? Are you flexible? What else would you like to highlight about yourself and to keep pulling that out and to keep diversifying for the young dancer?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's just a different beast for you and being female. And
Yes.
just even another thing too
Mhm.
that I'm interested is just talking, if you can just shed some light on the stereotypes of dance. And we'll specifically
Yeah.
focus on stereotypes of ballet dancers. And if you can maybe
Mhm.
dispel some of those, or maybe just talk about if you've experienced some of those things yourself, just talking about the stereotypes that typically come with ballet dancers, female ballet dancers. Just anything you have to say about that.
Yeah, well, I think the stereotypes, fortunately, is changing, and I'm really happy and excited about that. That was a big life purpose I had when I was an artistic director for a ballet company. I wanted to dispel the idea that a female ballet body had to be one particular way, and I'm really happy to see that ballet companies and dance companies are, they're being diverse in who they let into their company. Um, there's still that ballet ideal going on. And there's some value to that because not everybody can be a ballet dancer. The technique itself is very rigorous. You have to have a certain amount of turnout and flexibility to be a ballet dancer.
Mhm.
A lot can be attained with good training and a good teacher. But there's so many different forms of dance available that dancers should just not limit themselves to one technique, but keep trying as many techniques as possible, and then find your calling inside of. And you can find your calling as an artist inside a few different techniques. Like I love, ballet was my main love, but I love like
Mhm.
Horton modern dance.
Mhm.
And I had a
Mhm.
wonderful teacher. I actually love hip hop, and I love your hip hop, Kevin.
Thank you.
And I think I like would sneak into a class or two. It's not my forte, but to develop those skills and just have a joy. It's all about the joy of movement and dance and how you can bring that forth to your audience. I think that's also something that's missing. The dance is a performing art. You're performing for other people. It's a giving. It's
Mhm.
you're giving to the audience. It's actually not a receiving. You're receiving the training, but you're giving it back to your community and
Mhm.
audience. And what do you want to represent? What do you want to give to your audience? What do you want to say in that moment? So with all the technique in the world, if you can't speak your art to an audience, then it does get a little lost. It becomes showy, like leg up or whatever, but if you
Yeah.
can communicate something, um, that's a gift. That's a gift.
Absolutely. And if you can just talk about one, the importance of diversifying and,
Mhm.
putting your foot into different styles. And then two,
Yes.
just talking about your journey and how you branched from ballet and then going to
Mhm.
Horton and doing a little bit of hip hop and so on and so forth. If you could just talk about those two things.
Yeah. Can you mention the first one again?
Yeah, just the importance of diversification in terms of multiple styles and dance, just to
Yes.
broaden your knowledge and then your experience.
Yes. And again, I do think it's very important that dancers, just even if they feel like that style doesn't fit them, they're pushing themselves out of their box. A lot of times I see now young dancers, they just want to stick with what they're particularly good at. And of course there's like a joy to that, but to continually kind of break yourself down and push yourself out of the box. Well, I'm not particularly good at this, and that's why I'm going to do it. And then finding the love in there, or to take African dance and say, wow, this is really, I'm struggling with this technique, but I really love it. Or to take tap and to get that rhythm in your feet can help you as a ballet dancer.
Mhm.
For hip hop dancers to take a ballet class to find the softness in themselves. And so you have a diverse toolbox for yourself, and you can pull from all those techniques, so when you go to an audition or you
Mm.
perform on stage, you have more confidence to choose in that moment, because you have muscle memory. And then you rely on your training on stage or now on video, right? With the
Hmm.
pandemic, not on stage anymore right now,
Yeah,
or on video or live stream or whatever you're doing. You have to fall back on your training. And that's where your confidence comes in. So as if you can diversify enough in those moments where you're nervous or you're in the spotlight, you can fall back on your toolbox of all this training you have, and that will continually build your confidence as a performer. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying.
absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then maybe just talking about your experience too. So, how you
Yeah.
branched out from starting with ballet, and then what were kind of the styles you branched off into next from there?
Well, I was lucky my teacher made me do everything. She made me tap, I did modern dance, I did hip hop,
Hmm.
ballet, different forms of ballet. She
Hmm.
would bring in master teachers that I would have, musical theater. Um,
Hmm.
my dance teacher even made me sing, and I don't really have a singing voice, but to be able to be in a musical theater production, and even though if it's in the chorus I'm in the back, to feel
Yeah,
confident with some level of training there.
absolutely.
And it keeps you, another thing for uh, artists is to keep employed. You want to keep employed. It's very competitive to be a performing artist, and to you want to keep working. And I think what's scary for a performing artist is when you have a narrow um, niche, and then life happens, pandemic or anything else, and you feel like you don't have the tools to keep yourself employed.
Mhm.
So that's another reason why I say dancers just keep exploring different options for yourself.
No, absolutely. It's so crucial, and now more than ever, and kind of
Yeah.
see how easily those things can be taken away from us. So you're absolutely hit it on the head there with just knowing as much as
Yeah.
you can and being as much of a toolbox to just do, oh, this is asked for me. Oh, I have training in this. I feel comfortable. I could do this.
Mhm.
Um, was there a particular style aside from ballet? I know it has a special place in your heart, but aside from ballet, was there a particular style that maybe spoke to you or maybe gave you a satisfaction that maybe wasn't quite filled in ballet? Was there another style that kind of stood out to you, at least when you were growing up or kind of learning, or what was that like?
Well, to be honest, I really fell in love with Lindy Hop in my adult.
Hmm.
I had a little flair for it. I just seemed to like really take to it. And it was just for fun for me on the side. So there was a while in my 30s that I just did some Lindy Hop and swing classes, and I really loved that. And it was just good for me to have the side dance technique that I could just be a dancer, but without the stress of a career. Yeah.
Mm, that's huge. And I
Yeah.
think if you can just one, well, first of all, I wasn't even
Mhm.
expecting you to say Lindy Hop, which is amazing because I'm here getting goosebumps. Like that's the
Yeah.
last thing I was expecting, but that's awesome. But if you can just talk about exactly what you said,
Mhm.
dancing for the pure joy and love for it, and then also doing it as a career, maybe talking about the
Mm.
differences that people on the outside that haven't been in your shoes, they wouldn't really know the difference, and it's just like, oh, like you're just having fun doing what you love, but there is
Mhm.
a real black and white, like this is very different from this. So just talking about
Yes.
dancing for leisure and love, and then dancing for like, I'm trying to create revenue, I'm trying to make money and also have a career.
Uh, that's great. That's a great question, Kevin. Because as a professional dancer, you have to be able to just, no matter how you're feeling, you could be feeling scared for the world or nervous, or there could be things in your life, and you're going to have to perform and really fall back on your training. And it's a job. And I think a lot of people don't realize that being a dancer is a job, just like a 9 to 5. And sometimes it feels that way.
Mm.
You might not want to be there, so you have a love for it, but it is work. And then as a dancer, you always want to find the joy of why you're doing this again. um, and I think that's why it's important to have kind of dance be almost like a side hobby too, whether it's just improv or dancing in your living room, especially during this time when we can't be out and about. How turn on the music, remind yourself why you love your art form, Um, get in touch with your own artistry, dance for yourself with no one watching. I think those moments are really important so that you can be in touch with your artistry and keep that alive for yourself. And, it is important for people to know that it's hard for dancers that, yes, they have a job that they love, but it's not every day that we love our job. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm tired and I have to dance today. Or I have a lot on my mind, and it does become just a job. So I hope I answered your question um, good enough anyway.
No, no, that was great. I think another thing too is that a lot of people know, and from the untrained eye, that okay, this is a very physical
Yes.
sport. It takes a lot of athleticism
Yes.
and technique, and so on and so forth. But if you can also talk about how strenuous it is mentally as well,
Mhm.
and spiritually, and even emotionally, just talking about those
Mhm.
difficulties and your experience being a dancer and being a ballet dancer in the beginning, and just talking about those difficulties outside of the physical challenges.
Um, yes, you have to keep yourself incredibly honed in all those regards. So having routines in your life that support your body and mental well-being, and an aspect of spirituality to keep yourself grounded, whether it's 10 minutes of meditation, or like journal writing in the morning to keep you on track, or maybe it's just like planning the night before how your day is going to go and who you're going to be about it. I want my day to be this and this, and I'm going to have a good attitude about it, or something that you can create for yourself. Other routines that I think are really important for the discipline of being a dancer and a dance educator is, like taking care of your body. Rest is understated. I really encourage dancers to rest when they need to rest, um, to take supplements, to eat have a healthy diet, and to not abstain from things you love as well. Like, yeah, I think extreme diets are really hard for dancers, and I don't encourage that. They should eat what they want.
Mhm.
They have such high energy, and then eat healthy. It's about a healthy lifestyle. And because dance is so strenuous and athletic, it really almost forces the dancer to that kind of lifestyle. I mean, I still have to keep my body in a certain condition for whatever next gig or job I'm going to get. I
Mhm.
can't just let myself go.
Yeah.
I'm 50, and right now I'm currently not teaching or doing anything. Just the nature of our times at the moment. But I know I can't just let my body go, um, because the next job might be around the corner. So
Mm.
yeah,
Always
gotta do
being
the
ready,
fun.
always being ready, and always being ready for the
Yes.
next
Yeah.
opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that also like kind of brings me to
Mhm.
a good story in how we connected, and just to kind of jump right into it, as this car horn is in the background. But I remember I was traveling on a weekend, and I think it was the first weekend of April, and I remember was in talks with you, and I had just subbed a couple times at one of the previous studios you had, and I remember getting the email from you and getting an opportunity to have full residency at the studio at the time. And I remember that being such a huge moment for me in my career, in terms of, I was working a 9 to 5, and I was like, whoa, I can actually do this, and I can actually make something of this. So I don't know if maybe if you can talk about maybe if there was a similar moment for you, that aha moment, whether it was just casually in the classroom, or if it was actually an opportunity where it was like, whoa, like I'm going to do this. Like this is gonna be like my life. If I don't know if there's ever that moment for you, but I always bring you up when I talk to people about wanting to dance and do it as a career. I always tell them, like, always putting your best foot forward. You never know who's watching, and
Totally.
it just so happened subbing at the studio, and you had, thankfully saw something in me and gave me an opportunity, and it became something beautiful for us. And so
Mhm.
if you can just
Yeah.
talk about maybe if there was ever that moment for you, or a time, or an
Mhm.
experience.
So many times and experiences like that, actually. Just like one experience after that, after another. And I like what you said about always putting your best foot forward. I think that's the key, and even for young students, middle school, high school, putting your best foot forward, meaning also to always be professional. You're always representing yourself as an artist and and as a professional in your field, and to always be mindful of that. And I definitely saw that in you, Kevin, and your wonderful presence and your way of performing with heart and being there for the students. So yeah, you were just like a catch. Just caught you in, brought you in. And that was wonderful. So I feel like I've had so many moments like that. And um really, for me, it's like living a magical life when you allow yourself as an artist to be. The other part of artistry is like that intuition where you really
Mm.
feel it, and you feel it not only as an artist, but you feel it out there, because that's when art starts expanding and expanding. And if you can really expand that out a little further, your life becomes very magical. And then you have those magical encounters with like minds, right? And then your community and your artistry just continues to grow. So I'm fortunate that it continues for me to have those moments all the time.
Absolutely. Some of the
Yeah.
best times too, traveling with you and just getting
Yeah.
to the cool
Mhm.
thing is that we've had so many of these off camera, just talking about
Mhm.
life and dance, and it's pretty cool now that we just get to capture one of those. It's just like a culmination of all those conversations that we've had in the past, and just to put it out there for people to see and to
Yeah.
hear about what your narrative
Yeah.
is about. And
Yeah.
even kind of getting into that time, and maybe just talking about you, that opportunity happened for you when you're younger, in terms of a teacher seeing something in you, and you did the same thing for me. And so I mean, I don't know if that was ever like a whoa, like I'm this is like a rite of passage. Like I remember, I don't know if there was ever like a moment like that was so, life is so quick. You're just like, whoa, like I remember getting the opportunity. Now here I am giving someone else like the same opportunity. I mean, what was that like to kind of maybe
Mm,
continuing that education, and not just, being an arts teacher, but like a true continuation
mm.
of the same things that are aligned with your teaching philosophies? Like what was that, what did that mean to you to pass it to the next generation?
Well, another great question, and for me, that is like the ultimate goal. If I can't pass it along, then it stops.
Mhm.
So for me, being a mentor in the performing arts and seeing the younger generations come forth and representing the new leadership of the performing arts has been incredibly rewarding. And even watching what you're doing, Kevin, you went from this incredible hip hop dancer to this incredible hip hop choreographer and teacher. And now you're doing these wonderful podcasts, bringing artists and communities together. It's wonderful to see how um, we can lift each other up and broaden our communities. And you're still doing your art. You're still, art is just more than just the dance itself. It's about the bringing communities together and keeping the art alive and artistry alive. So that part for me has been incredibly rewarding. It's been one of my favorite parts, and I'm still doing that. As I approach my 50s, um, that's the biggest part for me now. I love being a choreographer, but I love even more being a leader in the
Mm.
arts world.
Absolutely. And now I want to kind of throw a couple terms at you, and I would love for you to, however long you need to, if you can just kind of give your own definition of these things, because I think that there's kind of a blend, and I think they're really different. So the first one I would love to you to just hear your definition is dancer. If you can define what a dancer is to you.
Mm. Hmm. A dancer is someone, well, they love the athleticism, right, of the art form. So a dancer to me is someone who loves the energy of dance, and it's also someone who really, they have to have a connection to the music as well. right? So they're connected. So being a dancer means to be connected in many different ways, to your body, to the music,
Mhm.
to what you're giving, as a dancer. I'd like to see that come back more. I sometimes I feel
Mhm.
like dance now is a little bit in the me world and forgetting that it's a gift to give.
Mhm.
Um, and it's also, it's portraying a feeling, and it's a vessel, right? You're channeling a vision, right? If you're working with a really good choreographer, you're working to let that vision out into the world.
Absolutely. Next
Mhm.
one, we're gonna now do same thing. We're gonna now focus on your definition of choreographer.
Ooh, that's my favorite. Well, as a choreographer, I feel like you have a little bit more responsibility, and it depends who you're working with. If you're working with professionals and you really want to create, your vision, um, that's a powerful and wonderful thing. You want to have that seen and communicated through your dancers. If you're working with children still, and teenagers included, I feel the choreographer has a little bit more responsibility, not just to have their art coming through, but that they're teaching and being a mentor to the young people, so that the the young dancer is understanding the process and not just lost in it and seen as an individual. So I feel like the two worlds of being a professional and then a choreographer for children and teens is slightly different.
Mhm.
And I would like to see that continue in the world, and for there to be a lot of clarity for choreographers in that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, so
Mhm.
we've done what are the
Mhm.
ones that we did? We did a dancer, we did choreographer. Now we're moving on to a teacher or slash educator. If you can define those for me.
A teacher. Teacher's the
Mhm.
ultimate responsibility. Um, they have the young people, they have the future leaders of the performing arts. So I, I feel like teachers need to um, talk with one another and form communities. And I know now the world of teachers is very competitive, like I mentioned before. And I'm saddened by that, because sometimes I see teachers so competitive, they're losing um, the true the true gift, and the like a teacher's forming communities, which is also still going on as well, and what they want to provide for children and teens nowadays. And like I said before, I mean, the COVID kids really need us as teachers right now. I mean, what a confusing time for them.
Mhm.
They need mentors and leaders to help them know it's going to be okay, for their life, and to help them navigate through this difficult time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And kind of going to kind of wrapping it up in terms of these definitions. Now going to if you can define director.
Oh, director, another fun one. These are great, Kevin. Director. Well, that's when for me it's all in different places, right? Um, so for director, that again, that's your vision, right? You're creating that vision, and then you usually have a team that you're working with. So it's being able to communicate with your team of professionals how you want your vision to come across. And there's two things. There's the vision of your production or whatever you want to create, and then it's the feeling inside the group, um, that can't also be lost, because you have to keep that throughout the show. You have to keep it, your team and the people involved, inspired to create and keep going inside your project.
Hmm.
So for a director, it's a large responsibility to have your vision come forth and keep the atmosphere positive and moving forward. And that's when the magic happens. What usually is created is something, it takes a life of its own. But if a director forces a vision out, sometimes it can feel stifling, and it's missing the flow.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think just defining those four different four very different things. I think is
Mhm.
super important. And I just wanted to,
Yes.
one, you having done all those things, you having to put on a different hat when you take on each role, and they all have their own different things, as you so clearly defined. If you can talk a little bit about the best things about each of those things in your personal journey, and then maybe some of the
Mhm.
biggest challenges in each of those spaces, because I think a lot of people just tend to like, oh, like you're a dancer, and
Mhm.
not understanding that just those four terms, and we're not just limited to those, but for the sake of today, that's what we're going to focus on, is just
Right.
four very different jobs. And
Yes.
just again, so
Yeah.
just the dancer in you, the
Yep.
choreographer in you, the teacher in you, the director in you, just talking about some of your favorite things of each of those, if you could speak, and then maybe some of the biggest
Mhm.
challenges for each of those jobs.
That's also really great. I love that you're separating those things. I think oftentimes that's not clearly defined in the dance world, or sometimes it is, especially in big companies for sure. Of course, it's clearly defined, but in studios or in other venues, it can be a little hazy. So I encourage, especially the younger generations as they come up, to clearly define those things for themselves. Who am I as a teacher? Write it down. Like journaling work, or something like, who am I as a teacher? Who am I as a director, and what does that mean to me? Who am I as a choreographer, and who am I as a dancer? Because you're right, they live in different categories. And sometimes, I've seen inside young, as it comes up, like a teacher might be confused about directing. A lot of it's, training, and a lot of it's not being clearly defined for yourself. So I encourage, as young as you can do that for the artist, the better your career will go. Um, I did that for myself, and it has certainly helped me define who I am in all those categories. So that can be a big challenge. Another big challenge is not always finding the teams that you can work with. Oftentimes,
Mhm.
as that's the number one challenge now, is the performing arts can be incredibly cutthroat, um, and competitive. And I know you and I know that well. That part, having that, it's a thick skin, but it's not joining the thick skin team.
Mhm.
You don't want to join the thick skin team and be that back. You can, and sometimes the pushback is okay, but to be really clear and clarified in your own mind what games you want to play and who you want to be. So if you're with cutthroat competitors, who do you want to be in the matter with that? And it's really helpful to know that in advance, rather than, it's hard when you first get thrown into those situations as a director, choreographer standing in front of dancers for the first time that don't think you can do it. So the clarity in that is good, and having a support system where you can talk it out with fellow artists is also really important, I think. um, so I think that's the biggest challenge now, and it always has been, is your competition and competitors, and knowing how you want to be with that, which I always encourage, just being clear within yourself and choosing the higher road. Choosing the higher road. Mhm.
Absolutely. And you hit it there again, that
Mhm.
competition and always that comparison to others, but even
Yes.
kind of getting into the more internal aspect of dance. And
Hmm.
for the most part, we live in the mirror, especially growing up, and
Yes.
it doesn't really matter what style you do, whether you're learning choreography or you're at bar or you're doing across the floor, you are still referencing the
Yeah.
mirror and primarily looking at yourself,
Hmm.
and then going off of referencing and comparing
Yes.
yourself to the other people in class. And so just talking about growing up in that environment, and
Hmm.
dancers and artists are some of the most critical people that I
Yes.
know, because you are always measuring yourself once in terms of your own growth, but then
Hmm.
most importantly, it's inevitable that we compare ourselves to those around us. So just talking about how that's
Hmm.
kind of affected you in your life, whether it's it's positively or it's maybe like it's presented some challenges, just always being so hypercritical and literally living in
Right.
this mirror 4 or 5 classes a day, how many
Yes.
hours? What how has that affected you?
Well, I mean, that's really hard. And it's hard for women and men in the performing arts. You're constantly uh, hyper body aware, right? All the time. Um, I would say, you have to continuously think about how you want to be. I'm eating healthy because I want a healthy body, and how to always keep grounding yourself and who you really are rather than the comparing part. But it's hard. Dancers have to do that almost on a daily basis.
Mm,
And I also think it's important now for dancers to, take their eyes away from the mirror and see how it feels inside. Um, so they always had the reference of the technique inside their body and how it's feeling for them on the inside. They might also find that they're feeling the technique is forced. Like if you're looking in the mirror, you might not always know that it actually feels forced inside your body. But if you can look away from the mirror and just feel the technique inside, you might go, oh my gosh, I'm kind of forcing this technique right now. I
mm.
think I'll take a step back and be a little gentler on my body. And, um, you can still push your body, but be gentle with it. But, it's super, super hard. You have to be incredibly grounded as a dancer inside yourself. So dancers have to have a self reflection um, constantly. They can't leave that aspect behind as well. And being encouraging to others. I see a lot of dancers on Instagram being super encouraging with each other, like, you're so beautiful, you look great. And always keeping that aspect of encouragement for others too, I think is important.
No, absolutely. Do you think that growing up in primarily initially doing ballet and focusing, I know you did other styles, but at least from my experience too, like we're in our attire is very
Mhm.
form fitting. For me, it's
Yes.
a white t-shirt and tights
Yeah.
and my ballet slippers, right? So at least for me, it was very uncomfortable in the beginning. Like, oh, like this is what my body looks like, and I'm
Right.
the only guy. Like, I was so self conscious, and I think over time you just get more and more used to it. But maybe just talking about, I know it's a huge thing. It's
Yeah.
your image. It doesn't even come down to just your technique and your ability, but it's just like, oh, what do I look like? I just feel so self conscious, and just talking about dealing with that, and maybe if you've had to
Mm,
guide and kind of support some of your students or even some of your peers in
right.
dealing with that, what's that been like?
um Again, a really good question. I think, and oftentimes dancers have been with, perhaps they've been with teachers that have been harder in that regard, or
Mm,
not as supporting. And I think it's, again, important for dancers. I'm trying to, since I'm older now, honestly, some of it is hard for me to go back and remember myself
yeah.
younger. But you have to go through those times where you just really look at yourself in the mirror and accept what is there, and then just be grounded in what you can and cannot do. I think that's a huge important. It doesn't mean that you actually can't do it. It just means you're accepting. And oftentimes, once you've accepted yourself and your body, it frees up some restraints, and that you can
Mm,
actually be more yourself as a dancer. And even doing simple things of looking in the mirror and just like loving your body. There's just really kind of being gentle with yourself. And I think, I see so many wonderful teachers out there right now that are supporting the holistic dancer, and I see wonderful teams supporting each other, and I love to see that movement. So that's a wonderful thing out there, and I just hope that that encourages. But it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. So it always has to come back to a self acceptance.
that's huge. It's absolutely
Yeah.
huge. It's something that's overlooked, and I'm glad that
Yes.
you're able to share that. I think that's gonna really guide and help a
Yeah.
lot of people, from the viewer and whoever's tuning in and listening to this. It's gonna be very helpful and beneficial for them. um
Mm,
Thinking too now with where we're at, and we've talked a lot about diversifying
mm,
and adapting and broadening your knowledge, talking about maybe artist life, and from at least from what you see from your vantage point, artists kind of adjusting to the world that we're in right now. If you can just talk about, your thoughts on that and like the arts moving forward.
I know, what a challenging time. um, I mean, it's changing rapidly, and I think again, the biggest thing dancers and artists can do right now is use their creativity to think outside the box. And I love what you're doing, Kevin. You're like, okay, we're home now, so I'm going to talk to other artists via Zoom,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's perfect. And I think the creativity is the key. I keep coming back to that because I've seen dancers who, um, if they have their creativity and they feel confident in their creativity inside themselves, can continue to diversify their career ongoingly. And I feel blessed that I've had that innate sense of myself. Creativity has been number one. I don't dance anymore, but I still feel like I'm a creative. So I'm
Hmm.
always looking for the new thing to do. So I think that's the number one thing right now. And I know it's hard as a dance teacher and a dancer to be on Zoom. And I know I'm still in touch with a lot of young dancers, and it's very challenging for them to be at home day after day doing their ballet class in their garage, feeling very alone. So the new generations are going to have an incredible strength, and they just need to keep seeing themselves as incredibly strong young people. And the teachers as well, if they can reach through the screen and continue to provide mentorship for young people, I think that's incredibly important right now.
Absolutely. And if, we're in a huge transitional period right now, and obviously you being further along in your career, if you can maybe talk about
Yeah.
what role dance plays in your life currently, if you can shed a little light on that.
Well, I'm and because of the pandemic, I'm taking a break,
Mhm.
right now. And I think breaks are important for dancers. I know dancers sometimes they hold themselves to this really high account. They have to take class all the time. But taking breaks is okay. And I think dancers need to hear that.
Mhm.
Um, if you have enough technique in your body, you can allow breaks from time to time and
Mhm.
then just get back in shape. In fact, it's good for your body to heal.
Mhm.
Hear all those, you got to heal all those little micro tears and injuries, and then sometimes you wash away the bad habits
Mhm.
from tension or stress as well. So I encourage breaks for dancers throughout their careers, and so I'm taking a break um, right now as a creative, but I'm already looking for the next thing to create. I like creating things from scratch and with other people. So the new aspect of video and how to, we've always been in the dance studio together
Mhm.
and in the theater. So now it's sad, but there's also an opportunity to create new ways of the performing arts and the live performing arts to come through to a new audience and even build the audience bigger. So, that's what I'm kind of looking at right now.
I mean, it's all that we can do, right? Is
Yeah.
figuring out and how we can move forward and all these sorts of things.
Yes.
Kind of just lost what I wanted to get at. It was just something that I really wanted to ask you, and it just slipped my mind. But I think talking about too, just this journey that you've been on, Miss Marie, and it's so rich, and you're obviously this is like we're kind of turning a new corner where
Mhm.
who knows what role the arts or dance is going to play in our lives, maybe 5 years or even 2 years from now.
Right.
We don't know when exactly. Just maybe as an outlook, or what would you,
Mhm.
you know, say to that, the generation that you're continuing to educate, to kind of keep them going forward? Obviously, that they haven't lived the career that you've already done
Right.
pre-COVID. And so for those that are maybe
Right.
like newly graduating, or like
I know.
I'm just starting to get into college, or whatever, or you're just starting to, be professionally dancing in a
Mhm.
company, those that are about to even just embark on their journey, like, what would you kind
Yeah.
of say to those artists and those people?
Yeah, and I really feel for the young artists right now. I really feel, and I feel their fear, and it is a scary time. I think that's number one, is to not overlook it and just dismiss it lightly. It's a big deal, what they have to go through. They've been planning their whole life and now life has shifted. So I think, again, acknowledging what they have lost and going through is important, to acknowledge their feelings and to do that for themselves inside is important. And for them to take the time to grieve, to journal, write it out, write out their frustrations and like kind of like, now what? So they don't just jump over that, into like a panic, that panic cycle where you're just like, I got to do something, blah, blah, to just to take the time to breathe. And I'm like, oh shit, like now what am I going to do? you know, and to take that moment for themselves and then to keep rebooting, a sense of rebooting, like, okay, well, here I go again. I'm going to do that class in my garage again. I'm going to go swimming today, or finding different ways to keep it alive for themselves. And dancers are doing that. I see it on social media. And I think it's really important now that artists and dancers reach out to one another, similar like what you're doing. I think that's a very healing way for creatives to come together and find what's next for them. So, and I think the performing arts is definitely going to survive and keep going. And um, I feel for the young artist right now that's going through this time.
Absolutely. And kind of already like answering, but just, kind of culminating everything that you've been through and all the diverse styles that life and dance has provided for you in this rich history. And even the connection, like I'm just one of many people that you have really helped bring up and given an opportunity to. If you could just say anything, Miss Marie, to your 13-year-old self, like going back and just everything that you've experienced, if you can say anything and everything as much as
Mm.
feel that you need to say, what would you say to your 13-year-old self, or that younger viewer that may be tuning in and just kind of starting? What would you say to them, or what would you say to a younger version of you?
That's a great question. um, well, this is from my older self now. I had this very painted, perfect vision of what the performing arts was really like. And I think to my younger self, just to keep diversifying, I do now. And, this is coming from my older self now, think it is important that dancers keep their education going as well,
Mm,
so that they're not just a performing artist, but they are doing other aspects. I'm thankful. I have a science degree, actually.
mhm,
And I'm thankful for my mind, and then I was able to think in a business way so that I was
mhm.
also a business leader as well. And I think that if dancers could, I would say to my younger self, keep all aspects open. You can be a dancer and you can be something else. Keep it diverse. What else would you like to be? In changing times, what else would you like to be passionate about? Is it the environment? Is it science? Is it like what you're doing, communicating with others and bringing communities together?
Mhm.
Writing, would you like to own a business someday? I think that's the key, to keep your doors open in many different areas so that you can keep employed and keep those creative juices flowing in many avenues.
I love that, Miss Maria. It's been a pleasure. It's really awesome that I'm able to just call you up and you're able to just like it was yesterday, like the last time we, and I don't even remember the
Totally.
last time I saw
Yes.
you, but you have such a rich narrative and it was just scratching the surface today. But hopefully those tuning in, whether you even are, a dancer or just an artist, I think there's a lot of things that are very similar among other artists, and hopefully you can take something from Miss Marie's narrative. But I just want to say thank you for just giving us your time today and for being so vulnerable and opening up. And hopefully we can do a check-in down the line and kind of see how you're
Yeah.
doing and getting your thoughts more on the arts and digging into all these other good things. But I just want to say thank you so much, Miss Marie. And I'm looking forward to having you on next time.
Great. Well, thank you, Kevin. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoyed talking with you. We always go straight, for the deep conversations and
Absolutely.
getting really creative together. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thank you, Miss Marie.
All right. Thank you. Bye.